So what happens when you're a national franchise that's absolutely crushing it, but your own website, the very thing that's supposed to be your biggest asset, is actually holding you back? That's the exact spot 1% lists found themselves in. And this is the blueprint for how they built their digital empire.
Right from the get-go, the project's own strategy document hit the nail on the head. It basically said the main website was trying to be two things at once, the big national brand and a small local office. And that identity crisis was undermining the entire mission. They looked like a local shop playing dress-up as a national brand. And that just had to change.
And this really gives you a feel for the chaos they were dealing with. The national brand voice was just completely drowned out by this jumble of local market data, blog posts from one specific region, agent lists from just one office. It was a mess. The real question was, how do you take all these scattered, mismatched pieces and forge them into one single, powerful national voice?
The answer wasn't a simple fix. It needed a total rethink of the architecture. And that led them to this really elegant and powerful solution, the hub-and-spoke model. Now, the absolute heart of this whole model is a technology called WordPress Multisite. The best way to think about it is like this. You've got one single, powerful engine that can run a whole fleet of different websites. For a franchise, this is a game changer because it gives you that centralized control you need to keep the brand looking sharp everywhere.
So this hub-and-spoke system really breaks down into three clear parts. First up, you have the national hub. That's the big, polished, public face of the entire brand. Then you've got the franchise spokes. These are the templated, local websites for every single franchisee. And finally, an internal portal, which is basically a private, members-only resource hub just for them. It's clean, it's separate, and it's incredibly effective.
Okay, so if every single franchise gets its own website, how do you stop it from becoming the Wild West, right? How do you make sure they all look and feel like they're part of the same family? Well, that led to this brilliant concept they called the Golden Master. Think of it as the perfect digital cookie cutter.
And this is where they had to find that perfect balance. On one side, you have the elements that are totally locked down by corporate. We're talking the header, the footer, the basic page layouts. That protects the brand's integrity. But then, on the other side, the local franchisees get the freedom to customize what really matters to them. Their local text, their photos, agent info, their own blog posts. It's the best of both worlds, really. You get that national consistency with a genuine local flavor.
Now here's a little technical detail that was actually a massive, massive deal. Making this whole Golden Master idea actually work across 50+ sites depended on one specific tool, the Beaver Builder agency license. Without it, someone would have had to manually update every single site, one by one. A total nightmare. With it, they could change something once from a central dashboard and have it update everywhere. It was, simply put, non-negotiable.
All right, the plan is solid, the tools are picked out, but now you have to actually build the factory. This meant getting into the nitty-gritty of the digital engine itself, the infrastructure, and all the key integrations that would make this entire network hum.
Which, of course, brings us to a pretty huge question. Where does a digital empire like this actually live? I mean, when you're running over 50 websites from a single installation, your hosting choice isn't just a minor detail. It is the foundation of the entire thing.
So the team narrowed it down to two heavyweights, WP Engine and Kinsta. Now you might look at this and think it's all about speed or backups. And yeah, WP Engine had an edge there. But the real decider, the absolute key, was the developer workflow. WP Engine's tools made it incredibly easy to build a new franchise site and then seamlessly transfer ownership and billing to the new franchisee. That process was a perfect fit for their business model.
So you see, at the end of the day, the decision wasn't about shaving a few milliseconds off of page load times. It was all about creating a smooth, repeatable process for bringing new franchises into the fold. This was a business operations decision, through and through, not just a tech one.
Now, what about property listings, the bread and butter of any real estate site? They came up with this really smart two-tiered system. Franchisees on a budget could choose a simple, cost-effective option that just redirected users to another site to search for homes. Or if they wanted to invest a bit more, they could get a premium, fully integrated search experience right there on their own site, which is a massive advantage for local SEO.
A great website is one thing, but you also need some seriously good plumbing to make sure the data flows where it needs to go. This new setup had to solve two big challenges. First, how do you make sure a lead from a website form gets to the right agent instantly? And second, how do you show off every single agent from across the whole country on that main national website?
So for lead capture, the solution was automated and just slick. Check it out.
A potential customer fills out a form on any local franchise site. Instantly, a tool called Zapier acts like a catcher's mitt, snagging that data. And boom, a new contact is created in their main CRM system, kvCORE. Simple, reliable, and it means no lead ever gets lost in the shuffle.
But getting all those agents to show up on the national site? Whoa, that was a whole different beast. WordPress multi-site just doesn't do that out of the box. So they had to custom build an aggregation engine. This was a unique piece of software designed to reach into every single franchise site, pull out all the agent info, and then compile it all into one big searchable directory on the main hub. A major piece of work, but absolutely essential.
So you've built this incredible digital machine. The final and maybe most important piece of the puzzle is laying down the rules of the road. With dozens of different people running their own sites on one shared platform, you absolutely need a clear governance plan to prevent total chaos as you grow.
They got this clarity by using something called a Rossi matrix, which is really just a fancy chart that answers the simple question, who's in charge of what? So for instance, adding a new agent to a local site, that's the franchisee's responsibility. Writing local blog posts, also the franchisee. But updating the core WordPress software for everyone, that's corporate's job. It spells everything out so there's never any finger pointing.
And what about protecting the whole network from a bad software update that could break everything? For that, they created a super strict protocol. Any update, for WordPress, for a theme, whatever, it first has to be tested on a separate, safe staging server. Nothing, and I mean nothing, gets pushed to the live sites until it's proven to be 100% safe. This is probably the single most important rule you can have to protect a network this big.
Okay, let's talk brass tacks, the bottom line. What does a project with this much complexity and scale actually cost? Well, the estimates put the budget somewhere in the neighborhood of $35,000 to over $75,000.
And when you hear that number, it makes perfect sense once you realize what this really was. This was not just a website redesign. This was the ground-up creation of a scalable national franchise platform. It was a fundamental re-architecting of their entire digital business. Which really leaves us with one big question that goes way beyond this one company. For any business that's growing, whether you're a restaurant chain, a retail brand, a tech company, what's the right balance between that central corporate control and the local freedom that lets your partners on the ground actually succeed? That's the core challenge of building any kind of empire.